Okay, in this lesson, we're going to take a look at harmonic progressions and diatonic versus modulating sequences. Now, this lesson is a little bit more advanced, but it's still a good lesson to listen to because we're not going to focus so much on sight reading. We're going to focus more on sound. So this doesn't matter if you're into classical music or any other type of music. Tonal harmony can apply to many different kinds of music. Okay, so before you can compose convincing tonal music or learn anything from harmonic progressions, you must learn which chord successions are typical of tonal harmony and which ones are not. Some chord successions progress and move forward toward a goal, while others tend to wander and leave our expectations unfulfilled. And what we're going to do is we're going to compare a harmonic progression to a random progression. Now, just harmonic progressions really, they start out and they follow a certain type of progression and the ending has some sort of finality, where as a random progression, it moves around randomly. It sounds pretty good, but it doesn't have any real sort of finality. And you can listen to a lot of this in pop music today. There's some music which, it's just repetitive and it kind of goes off on its own. And then some music, in pop music, and rock music is more progressive, and it follows some kind of pattern and ends up in a very final place. And it's more fulfilling to the ear that way. And if you're the type of person who's going to put out a lot of songs, a lot of music, you want to definitely give your songs some depth. If you're coming out with 20 songs over a period of 2 years and you're putting it out there, you definitely want to do something different and, have the progression move. And this could be used even in trance music. A lot of trance loops that there's some that just go around and repeat, and then there's some that follow a progression from a starting point to an ending point, and those usually are much more popular because they're more pleasing to the ear. They don't get old as fast. If you ever heard a riff just go over and over, after a while it sort of gets old. Progressions it's kind of like a longer riff, but it's got a little bit more depth to it. So we'll take a look at it now. The first example is an example of a harmonic progression, and we have bass and treble clef, and these are the chords, and this is the notes in the bass. Now, if you listen to how this goes, the ear has a sense of where it's going in some sort of direction, and it's going to end up in a certain destination. And it's much more fulfilling than a random, which we'll take a look at in a minute, but I'll play this one more time. Now, it may sound like church music to you, but regardless of, you could take away the sound of the piano and everything, the principles still apply, whether it's jazz music, classical music, rock music. You can use harmonic progressions in any type of music. It doesn't have to be classical or music that sounds like it's coming out of a church. The second example is an example of a random progression. Although progression 2 has a certain uniqueness to it, it is a random progression that does not sound as tonal as progression 1. So here's the random progression. It looks sort of similar, and it's the same kind of layout, but the thing is the notes are in different orders, and the ending doesn't sound as final as the one before it. Let's take a listen. Okay, so it doesn't sound bad, but it's kind of like wandering off on its own. It doesn't really have any kind of, direction. And between the two, the first one is using more principles of tonal harmony, whereas the second one, it could be someone just coming up with something, or just plotting out notes on a staff, or just singing into a microphone. But the truth is, if you learn how to create more tonal progressions, you don't always have to do it from a staff and writing it down. Your ear will begin to understand harmonic progressions, and you could do it almost on the fly, so that when you're coming up with music, whether it's in a band or you're just coming up with it on the fly, you'll start to think more along a progressive line as opposed to just coming up with some random riff that either repeats or that goes nowhere. So this is all part of ear training. If you can plot out the notes and do sight reading too, but in this lesson, it's very important to understand your ear needs to if you want to make your music more interesting, it's a good idea to start listening to progressive styles of either rock, classical music, and by having that influence, you will come up with much more interesting music, which will be more challenging too.